Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dual Screens podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, as always, he's in that other box. He's Andy Asimakis. How are you, Andy?
I feel good. I
You
feel
do.
like the dreams are going to become memes pretty soon by the time this is over.
Oh, the dreams are becoming the memes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your eyes are not deceiving you. This is a very special episode of the Dual Screens podcast. Joining us for this special episode is the founder of Kind of Funny, who was born to eat chicken wings and play video games. As I live and breathe, he is Greg Miller. How are you, Greg?
I am great, Stephen and Andy. How are you?
Welcome. I'm fantastic. I can't even begin. Like, the heart rate's going. I wish I had like the little number on my screen, but man, this is fantastic. The last time that we met, it was a arduous 7-hour line in New York City that ended in complete darkness.
I was gonna say, you ended up, you were one of the ones that meet me out in the park, or did you meet me in the Starbucks line where I had to pee so bad, where I was like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta go do this.
That was after the fact.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, that was. It was.
And that's what happens when you don't really plan. You know, kind of funny. We were like, we'll just rent this bar and everything will be great. And then you got there and it was great for a few hours, and then it was way too many people, and we took it over and we had to move it, and then there's nowhere to pee in the park. It turns out.
Yeah, the parks don't have places to pee. Go figure.
Who would have thought?
They do now.
Oh, they do now?
It's everywhere. Any hole you could find is good at this point in the parks of New York City. It's getting better. Good. But for those of you that are new here to the Dual Screens podcast, this is the internet's #1 gaming indie developer podcast, hosted by two people you've never heard of, probably. That's right. The show posts each and every Friday for your listening pleasure on your podcast service of choice. Yeah, it is. It is. You're getting 2 shows today. Or kind of, sort of, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. It's a bonus show. Yeah, you're getting it. You're getting it when it happens, and it's fine. Everything's fine. On your favorite podcast service of choice. If we're not on a service of choice that you like, but you're watching this later, let us know and we'll get on that service. So we did. We're trying to get on everything, and we're pretty much on everything.
How much of a nightmare is that? This show is about indie video games, of course, but you're an indie podcast, and you have to understand that, like, I don't know how to do that. I never had to do that. We left, and then Tim took that, and then Tim just makes sure we're on everything. And I don't know what magic he works and how he does it. But it seems like it's a pain in the ass.
Put it this way, Greg.
Yeah.
It's way easier when you have your numbers versus ours.
For sure.
Like, for us, it's like we have to prove a lot to get on some platforms. But it's not a big deal because you know what other platform we're on? We're on YouTube. And you can watch it as a video podcast, and it's so freaking easy. A baby can do it. It's youtube.com/dualscreens.tv.
Benjamin, subscribe to youtube.com/dualscreens.tv.
He can do it. A baby can do it. I'm telling you. My kid has done. He's one of our 800 some odd subscribers. If you want to support us with your hard-earned cash dollar bills,
why does your kid have his own YouTube account? That can't be good. That's way too young.
Dude,
that's what I was saying.
We'll get into it because he did it by himself.
Oh, Lord.
He's 6.
Oh, Lord.
He created his own profile, and he's like his
nightmare scenario.
That's not what you want to hear. Right?
But I have to approve videos that are public because he had one video on there. He's got like 700 videos. Here's this right off the track. He's got a video of me completely shirtless telling him facts about dinosaurs.
Okay.
And I was like,
that sounds like a pretty good video. I'd watch that. That sounds like it goes viral.
We cannot put this on YouTube. This is not
too
YouTube
sexy.
safe.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, too sexy. But if you want to support this fucking trash fire, go to patreon.com/NDS podcast, just like our Patreon producers, Colton the Apprentice Nestler and FNH Paul. We cannot continue to grow without all of your support. It is your support that allows us to travel, to go to PAX East, to get the latest and greatest technologies to cover for you on dualscreens.com. So thank you so much for doing that. And just $1 gets you into our VIP Discord where you can hang out with us and our former guests. That's right. Indie developers galore in there that you could pick their brain on indie development or just kind of hang out, try their games early. It's a great time. So head over there. But now it is time to get into the meat and potatoes, which is special. It's a special meat and potatoes. We're not talking about how games are made. We're going to be talking about how indie games are covered. Now, Greg Miller.
Yes.
Let me tell you a quick story. Very quick story.
Remember, Blessing ate up 8 minutes of your time, so that's all.
It's
on him.
okay.
Blame him. No, I'm not rushing you. I'm letting you know Blessing's your enemy.
I love Blessing. I love that Merc City. Here's the thing. Years ago, when PS3 was the rumors were starting to churn, right, about the PS3. I asked a friend, I said, I want to know news about the PS3. Like, how do I follow this? And he said, go to this website. It's called IGN. Go there, and there's always posting news. So I was following that for a while, and then I don't know the exact timeline, but they started this thing called podcasts. And I was like, what is this podcasts, you say? You know?
What is this,
and,
new technology will never take off? I want my video game in newspaper form.
That's right. I had the big old clicky wheel iPod and all that stuff. So I do the thing, and this fucking goof is doing this show where Undertaker's bursting through walls, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a person that was created to specifically find me as an audience. Like the whole wrestling thing, the comic book thing, the goofy humor thing, and from that point forward, I was hooked on all things Greg Miller. And that's not just that's not just the circle jerk, okay? That's not what this is for. But I just want you to have context for the fact that I didn't follow any gaming news whatsoever until the PS3 and until IGN. And then something magical happened across all of those years where these things called PlayStation Minis sort of came around.
Thank you, Zombie. All praise Zombie Blognack and Jeff Rubenstein. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Throwback. So
I think if you want to really get into it, and I'll let you keep talking, but I was deleting things off my phone the other day because I finally have hit the tipping point where my phone's like, listen, you got to get a bigger phone because you have what is it? I think I have 63,000 photos on my phone because I don't delete photos on my phone. Yeah. And so I was going through and looking through, and I found a screenshot of a conversation between Rubenstein and I on text where he's like, everybody keeps coming up to me at this event and asking me about PSP minis.
Oh,
yeah,
my heart breaks for the PSP.
The PSP Mini, man, it's still going strong, man. That thing is still.
Is the PSP Minis audience still huge?
Minis, no. Yeah. The PSP has its audience, has its emulation audience.
Sure, of course, yeah.
They're crazy about that PSP. But just to get back to that, like that's sort of where this whole new world of indie development sort of, it was like the genesis. It was the seed in the dirt, as it were. Oh,
I gotta move my head. Sorry there. January 17th, 2012. Does that say? Me talking to Jeff from Sony.
Wow.
PlayStation Minis. I'll never delete that. I'll never delete that text message. That was the power of Podcast Beyond in 2012.
Do you know what I will never delete? And you could maybe say that this is a little bit Riddler-esque in that I might be a sociopath and you might want to get me arrested or at least put a restraining order on me. I have all the emails from us back and forth from my IGN wrestling league where we did the SmackDown versus Raw wrestling league.
Oh my God.
I still have all those emails. It's like, oh my God, he answered me. And I like printed them out there in a box somewhere.
I wish we could do that again.
That was a blast. Von Penguin, I'm coming after you, you fucker. Yeah. Jim Riley. I'm like, what? And you and your stupid swing neck breaker, but I digress.
Dude, I still have the float over DDT in this. I made sure Gruesome Greggy had that in WWE 2K22.
Yes, your character was Jim Riley, and it was annoying. And I made such cringeworthy commissioner videos. But it was that was like when I really was hardcore into like the whole IGN scene and all that stuff. Sure. But it was a blast. But to get back on topic, which
I'll watch Misery later. That was a good movie.
My car breaks down in front of Steven's house. Why did you leave IGN, Greg?
Oh man,
Cock-a-doodie podcast.
Yeah, so like that was sort of the genesis, and then as you broke away from IGN, I mean, we've had an explosion of indie development
for sure
content out there. I mean, you guys did a couple of showcases, which we like just absolutely loved because some of the people that you had on there were already on our show. We've been interviewing indie developers for almost 4 years now, 4 or 5 years.
That's awesome.
And we're approaching 300 guests. We've had voice actors on the show from video games. We had the face and voice of Celine in Returnal. We've had
that's awesome.
It was fantastic. Like we've been doing this for a long time, but we've never had somebody on your side of things, which is kind of technically also on our side of things, but you've done it on a much grander scale. You have, all that stuff. So this is going to be sort of about covering indie video games and the best way to kind of do it and the importance of it. So I want to just ask you a quick question to lead off this whole interview process here as we're leading off 18 minutes into our time slot. Fuck you, Blessing.
I'm gonna let you go 8 minutes over. Don't worry.
No,
It's what I did last time. It eats into the lunch, so we have that break. We're fine. Don't worry.
How important is it to be the megaphone for indie development and indie games in this current climate?
I mean, I think enormously important. I think, it's interesting. One of the reasons, we got all these different pitches for have Greg on your podcast and, where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And the reason you guys stood out is because I like the idea of talking about covering this because honestly, I think it's one of the biggest things we as an industry, the enthusiast press side of it, fail at because it's so hard to do. Like, people always want to give shit about clickbait or whatever, this, that, and the other. If you want to get down to the nuts and bolts of SEO and getting people through the door, it is about having a sexy thumbnail and a sexy headline. And of course, we try not to lie. We don't lie, right? If it says, somebody the other day was like, oh, a WWE 2K22 review, clickbait headline. And I responded, I'm like, you don't know what clickbait means, do you? Like, we review the game in this. We talk, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't, it wasn't like we didn't review the game or give it a score or say whatever. The problem is though that indie stuff is so niche to this day, and I mean that like you brought up Returnal, right? Which is arguably, is that indie anymore? And at the time, and there's a whole different conversation. But for all intents and purposes, right now, you toss it out there, right? And like a Returnal, something that's going to break through and get a bigger audience is so rare. And even when it does, a Returnal isn't a Horizon. A Returnal isn't an Elden Ring. It isn't a God of War. And so you have to start hedging your bets on where you put stuff up. And I think, as you guys know, as a content creator, right, like, there's those things where you have to be like, all right, I'm putting up this show and I believe in the show. I believe in this headline and this is what we're running with. And it's not going to necessarily do numbers, right? Like I think for us recently, right? Like I love Puzzle Quest 3. Like I want to talk about Puzzle Quest 3 all the time. I want to play it all the time, blah, blah, blah. But like when I gave the official review on Gamescast, there was no way we led with that and put it in the thumbnail. Like granted, there was bigger reviews that week. You go that way. Indie games are the same way where there are so many different things like, I think if you look at me and Janet Garcia and the amount of stuff we shout out and talk about on PS I Love You XOXO, or she goes and streams, right? Or I'll talk about on Gamescast, like the fact that I have not been able to move the needle for Toem breaks my heart. Like I love Toem. Like I think about Toem all the time. I listen to Toem's soundtrack all the time. Full disclosure, my wife's company did do like, PR and marketing for it, but that's not why I love it. They make a lot of games I don't give a shit about. This one's different. And it's that thing of to get to the end of the year, to get to Game of the Year conversations, to go on other people's podcasts and mention that and have them go, oh, I don't know what that is. It's like, oh my God, like how do you push that through? Even something like Chicory, right? Where it was like, Chicory, like, did not click for me. Like, I understand why people love it, and it just wasn't what I loved. But Blessing and Janet loved it, and we put it in PS I Love You headlines and thumbnails, right? And those episodes didn't perform. Now, again, do we care? No, yes, of course not. I wish every video did, better than it does, but we're ready to make those. We did the Horizon spoiler cast 2 weeks ago or whatever, right? And it's like, well, this episode is going to do jack shit for traffic until, maybe a year from now, you'll look back and the numbers will be great because people are looking for that kind of thing. Indies are a different ballgame of like, there's not going to be a comeback to that. So it is very much about who is your show for, who is your audience, how do you do this? And I think a lot of times when I talk about smaller independent games, I think of it more like it's the side dish, it's the vegetable on the plate, it's the medicine. And I hate saying that because I love indies so much, but it's the medicine and then the big picture, the big topic, that's the sugar. And so you have to mix them together to get people to kind of be in there to listen to it, to give that game a chance. But even then, it turns out so many people will tune out, which I get because, the amount of people from the industry that have hit me up and game developers who talk to me and congratulate me on, being a dad or whatever, and then go, I can't believe how many games you're still playing. How do you make time for it? And I'm like, well, it's a cheat code. Like I do get to play during the day for my job. Like I block out time and it's not seen as me, screwing off. It is me doing something that'll become content. Whereas I understand that if I had a job that was making a video game, if I had a job that was working in a library, then my gaming time would be limited to when I get home. And when it's limited to when you get home, it's going to be more of it's going to be an Elden Ring. It's going to be this big.
Yeah, you have to pick and choose. Yeah, for sure. Andy, I want to get you into this conversation.
Yeah. It's...
But can I ask you a quick question, Andy? And it's
Sure.
something to kind of, it's something that's going to kind of like.
He's going to get you on this one, Andy. He's going to nail you.
No. We cover PAX East. We love PAX East. And the first thing that we want to do when we get to PAX East, and Andy handles our schedule, he schedules all of our interviews and our hands-on time, and basically 99% of our time is spent covering the indie show floor.
For sure.
However, the first thing that we have to do is get all the AAAs out of the way when they open up a half hour early for press and media, because it's a fucking nightmare over there. And there's just a gajillion people, and it's like, here's Sony, here's Square, they have 1 game, 2 games, and everyone in the entire place is shoving each other to get to those. And then there's these indie games that have a booth the size of my desk where we're trying to cram as many of these in as possible, and none of them get more than 15 minutes. Not like people waste their entire day on one booth, whereas we're going around that whole
the amount of times I walk through a PAX and somebody yells at me from a line, hey, and I'm like, oh man, well, so what are you getting ready to see? Oh, I'm getting ready to see Sony exclusive A. Oh, that's great. How long have you been waiting? 2 hours. 2 hours?
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, I get it, but like, is it really worth that to play 15 minutes of it? Yeah, you could go play all these other games.
It's really not, because there's so many other games to discover in PAX, especially, and there's so many gems on the show floor. To think spending 2 hours on one game that's maybe mediocre at best, it's like high budget AAA games. Like, I could be playing so many other games in this time, but I may miss the chance to play this big budget AAA game. So it's a hard thing to wiggle around on a convention show floor, especially.
But without those AAAs, and this was kind of my point, without those tents, like when Company A was dropping out of PAX East, when Company B was dropping out of PAX East, I was like, oh shit, this floor is going to be empty. And PAX said, oh, okay, we're just going to expand the indie floor. And they did. Like they had Panzer Paladin, one of my favorite games from last year, had a massive booth, and it was gorgeous, and it was eye-catching. They had these 12-foot tall mech cardboard cutouts where people were like, what the hell is this? It looked like it was the main event, the main attraction of that little corner of the show floor. And that's what we want our podcast to be.
Sure.
The main attraction is the indie game. And yeah, we may not get 10,000 people. We've had Doug Cockle. That's
got it.
The Witcher 3. We had him on our show, and it's like, people didn't, they don't care who does the voice, like whatever, but some people did, and that's what counts to us. Like, there are people behind all of this shit that make really cool stuff, and we make them our main event. We're not looking to be an IGN or whatever. Like, we're not looking to be this, I don't know, mega conglomerate of media.
Well, you're doing it the right way, right? This is the things I've said for 15 years, where people say, oh, I want to get started in the industry. How do I do it? And I always say, well, don't try to be IGN. Don't try to cover everything. Everybody does that. Find a niche, pick a lane, be the experts in something, so that when there is a thing, a great indie's coming up, or you want to know when it is, to go to this podcast rather than a general interest podcast. It could be anything.
A really fast way to bankrupt yourself is to invite guests every single week and fall in love with their story and their game. Then you want to buy their game almost immediately. And every single week you bring someone on. It's like, this game is really neat. Okay, $10. Oh, this is also
just
really
ask
awesome.
them for a code. You're pressed. Why are you can't do it?
He wants to support them. He's sick
but what you're doing is giving them the platform for it, right? And then to talk about it and talk about how much you love the game. That goes real far.
It's the sickness. I'd rather get a code for a fan out there than myself.
Okay,
that's my perspective.
Be
not me.
bankrupt.
Greg, I'm with you, buddy. Give me your game. I'll play the shit out of it. I'll stream it. I will write about it. I will do all the things. I will talk on 3 podcasts about it. But I have 2 kids and a full-time job. I gotta.
Well, it's the
careful.
other thing too of like, I can't tell you in my career how many indie games I've seen and previewed and played and been like, oh my god, this is gonna be great, and then I do get it, and I'm like, oof, this didn't come together. And because there is that gamble, and there's a gamble to that for any game, right? We see that with AAA games all the time, but I feel like with the cadence of indie games, the fact that you hear me read on Kind of Funny Games Daily out today, right? And how many games do I list that are out today that you've never heard of? If you want to talk about Steam and early access and all that, like there is a, you want to drink from the water fountain, but it is just a fire hose of content blasting you in the face. And you're going, I love indies, but this is a lot of indies.
Yeah, no, like for every one of those games where you're like, ooh, this didn't come together, you get a Fall Guys. Like we had the Fall Guys on, and they were fantastic. And then all of a sudden their game comes out and it explodes into the, and that after the fact got some people to come check it out. Okay. But that's kind of not the point, like, right? Like, we're trying to give a platform, a voice to the voiceless, you know, to quote some terrible quote. Actually, that's not a terrible quote. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You know, we want to be that platform. So, but we don't get upset at that success. Like, that's the point. Like, we want these games to be successful. The Messenger, there's been a bunch of games that we've
championed.
Andy is so good at it. Andy is so good at finding these gems. Like, we do have contact with Jen. We've met Jen before at PAX. Like, we have contacts there. We have contacts with Devolver.
Jen, are these dual screen kids cool? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You get our approval. You get our approval.
I mean, I got a hug, so I better be cool.
Nice. Okay.
Like,
cool.
I don't know. Yeah. Granted, I was next to Kyle Stevenson, who
sure
just gives that hug vibe out. Like, people just it's
like, he's got crazy hair. He's got to be somebody.
The beard and everything. Yeah.
No, I hear you. And, like, again, like, that's the point of what I'm talking about, where I love that about you guys, that you do double down, and that brings you a core audience that is going to be here week after week to hear, hey, what is going on in the indie scene? But then you do, when you have something that breaks out or people want to find out more, they come back to it from that. And I think that's so powerful and interesting. And that, you know, again, like, that's what the showcases were and are designed to do. They were designed to, like, cool, now that PSX isn't there anymore, you don't get that show floor experience, which was so amazing, right? Like, PSX show floors were amazing to walk through and do it because they were a bigger version of the indie mega booth from PAX. And back to what you're talking about, right? Of, like, you know, some of my favorite game demos have been on the mega booth because it's something that I think is lost on so many fans when they go to PAX or a show. And it's that, you know, you get in line, you wait, you get a demo for this PlayStation thing, or you get to a kiosk, not even like a behind closed doors. There's kiosks. Somebody's like, all right, here's a controller, and checks in. Like, that person's hired to work the booth, and that's, you know, they're from the events team, and that's not really what they do. They didn't make the game. They don't know about it. When you go to an indie booth, when you go to indie mega booth, the person handing you the controller has spent their life making that game. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I met Kyle Seeley for the first time. Emily is away. And, like, you know, the fact you sit there and then they see you engage and get excited and you turn, and, like, so many people, you know, play games and, like, internalize everything and put it down and walk away. And so to sit there and talk to the people who create these gaes and share what you loved or didn't like about it, they want all that. They're starving for that. And so it's so powerful to be able to go in there and give it to. And that's the same thing. I say it for, like, live events. I'm talking about it right now for a podcast, right? Where it's like, even for us, how many opportunities do I turn down, you know, dev interviews or dev things? And it's just like, well, we don't really have an avenue for that. That's not really what we do, right? This is what you do, and that's why it's so great. And there's an audience for that there, but it's like, I know, and not even having, you know, talk to the devs right after they're on your show, I know they love coming on the show and talking. They want to talk about this stuff. They want to engage. And it's, you sit, you know, how the industry covers indies, like, it is a struggle. And I don't think, you know, it'd be easy to look and be like, man, IGN, kind of funny, GameSpot, whoever, they should do more for it. They should have this, they should have that. But of course, it's this chicken and egg thing where you're always trying to satisfy what your audience wants. And
that costs money too.
Exactly. And if you're not, and so, like, it is this thing of, you take a shot with something and it doesn't connect, you step back from it. It's like, well, if we committed to it, would they commit to it too? Would it grow over time? Would it go this way? Like, I've struggled with it. You know, I still want to do a show that's the best thing I ever, and then it's ever played, ever watched, ever whatever. And it's not always going to be Metal Gear. It's not always going to be something you've heard me talk about. It's just like something you played and loved, right? And I've thought about trying to turn that into streams and trying to get that to be, hey, here we do it. We do a streaming day that is somebody just comes in and shows us their game. Like, we don't do enough show and tell it kind of funny, and nor do I think the industry does it large in a lot of ways. And so it's been, for me, you know, Snowbike Mike's been so great about building our Twitch presence the past year and 3 months now. God, it's time.
I cannot believe that. Like, that happened so fast. We love the Snowbike Mike was a former guest of when we did copyright infringement dual screens games cast.
Nice.
Which
Tim shut that shit down fast.
We changed it to crossplay.
We don't talk about that, do we? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't mention that. I was like, listen, we just need to do something. Let's just make it simple. And I'm like, you'll do everything kind of funny does. Beep blop bloop. Anyway, but yeah, like, that's you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, that's sort of the whole point. You know, we're actually producing, we're in pre-production for a new show that actually Andy is going to be kind of taking the lead on, Vertical Slice, which is going to be all about, it's going to be dual screens vertical slice. We're going to get devs on that are still working on their game that aren't quite ready to do the PR thing. want to give you the nuts and bolts of like why you should have it on your radar.
Sure,
like
that's awesome.
they may not be on the Steam page yet for a wish list, but they're gonna get there, or they may be gearing up for a Kickstarter or something like that. So they'll come on and give us a little vertical slice of their gameplay, do a quick little interview, basically what we do at PAX or any convention that we cover, where you get a 15-20 minute time slot and you got to kind of just go.
Yeah.
We want to do that, but like all year round. And you'd be surprised. One of the things we used to be part of this other website that, when we decided we wanted to do interviews, Andy, and you could speak on this a little bit more, because you're the guy. Yeah. And they said, you want to do interview? Like, you can't get a guest every week. You're not going to be able to find somebody to do this every week.
I was like, you watch me, dude.
Yeah.
Andy, them fighting words.
In November of last year, we recorded every podcast up until the second week of February.
We had, I think, about 19 interviews in the span of 2 weeks.
Yeah. There are so many people out there making games and want to tell their story. Like, if I was to give advice to anybody that wants to do a podcast, like, or get into this business or anything like that, like, go to Twitter and hit people up. Like, there are so many
100%.
Developers out there that just want to talk. To your point,
and that's the thing where I think so many people get caught up in, oh well, we don't have the reach of IGN, Kind of Funny, whatever. We don't have a big reach. Right. We don't have a big footprint. When again, for developers, they have, for the most part, usually independent developers, no footprint, right? Like, it's not not everybody's a super giant. And then even when they are a super giant, Greg Kasavin will come on your shows. Greg is happy to come support independent creators the way he's been supported the same way. And that's the thing I think people get in their own head about it too much, where it's like, no, these developers want to talk about stuff. They want to have opportunities. The people who are doing, PR for them want to get the game out in front of passionate audiences. So if you have a passionate audience, it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are. It's about, like, does your audience care about this product, and product being indie games?
Absolutely.
And you hear like the most insane stories. Like, every game has their own special origin story. Like, we've heard things about one guy with $10 in the bank on the day his game launched on Steam, and it was a make or break for his entire life. Or how you stumbled into making an adults only game, like, unintentionally, and now you have like $70K a month on Patreon.
Yeah.
So those kind of stories you don't hear often enough, because there's that bubble of AAA game dev. It's very clean. It's very by the numbers, by the book, and there's not enough soul in those aspects. But
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you nail it, that people don't know those stories, and it's crazy to me because I do. But again, I'm privileged in the fact that I've had those interviews and I've covered those things and I've done it. But like, again, people tune out or don't tune in for that content. So it's like, when people do, like, oh man, it sucks, this is exclusive to Xbox Game Pass on day, I'm like, that just paid for the game. Like, that game's paid for. Those people mortgaged their house or did whatever. Like, you get these people who are putting everything they possibly have into this game. And it was, for the longest time, especially for me being so old, these games that did launch and were, hey, if this doesn't sell, like, I lose my house. I did all this different stuff. And these were the things, like, Cuphead, right? They took out a mortgage on their house, again, to make this happen. And like, Cuphead obviously did fine. Did just fine.
They're okay.
But there's plenty of games that don't, right? Like, I forget the name off the top of my head. You guys might even know better than me. But I remember in the last year, like last 365 days, there was some story of a game that, like, hey, our game launched and, it got no fanfare, and like, we did not even get close to recouping our costs. So we really need help here if anybody can help us.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, and we could probably name off 25 games if we tried hard enough. Like, if we went back into our list of guests, but it's the lifeblood, I think, of gaming, though. Like, I understand that we have the big brain and we have the heart of, like, the Microsoft, Nintendo, PlayStation, like, all those major AAA titles. Like, I get it, but especially with how AAA development is now, where things are getting delayed years in some cases, and the scope getting more and more expensive, and just it's astronomical. Like, you can't, like, Naughty Dog can't do it all. You know what I mean? Like, Insomniac can't do it all for Sony. Like, it's just not possible. That's where you get Kena. You get a Kena because of that. And I can't even tell you, like, Kena was absolute joy. last year was just phenomenal for indie developed games.
I feel like it gets better every year, and I think last year
does.
being such a weird quote unquote year, right, where there wasn't the clearly this is game of the year and this is going to be runner up and yet I think it opened the playing field up for more of those kind of games to rise, and that's what you always look for with indies, and it's what I've said for years, right? The fact that especially with AA development really falling away and kind of making a comeback right now because of Xbox Game Pass, because of some of the PlayStation deals, but overall, indies are the ones who stepped up to fill that gap, where they're the reason that every week you have dozens of games being released, and then you have these tentpole giant ones. And like right now, obviously, we're in this embarrassment of riches spring/winter, right? Where it is, Elden Ring and Horizon and the list goes on, like everything that's been happening that are big games dropping. But usually it is, right? You get big game, ton of indies, and like bigger indies, like the triple I for indies you hear about so much, and all these other things to get to the next big tentpole triple A game. And so even right now, once we get through March, right, and it kind of quiets down a bit, if you want to go check Blessing's super fun list of video games coming out, or whatever the hell he calls it, like when that quiets down, it will be now time for the indies to rise up again and be like, all right, cool, here's something cool you could be playing or could be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like I betray them when I play like an Elden Ring because it takes up all of my time.
And that's the rub, right, man? That's the thing, right? Like, is there anything better than coming off something big? You come off a big AAA, a big whatever RPG, and you go, you know what? I'm gonna play this indie, and you play it and you beat it in 2 or 3 hours. And you're like, wow, that felt great. After not slogging, but feeling like, man, I'm wasting time. I'm burning time I could be playing other games with. Again, that's like, I can't even imagine for you guys. Like, that's what I worry about all the time of like, cool. Like, like I've launched my WWE review and we streamed it yesterday. So now I have to move over to Ghostwire Tokyo. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, I want to play more WWE, but I feel like I then am like cheating on this, my work. I have an assignment. I have an embargo to hit for previews, right? So like, I got to play that. So I can't play that. So I feel bad about it. But like, I'm talking about games that are, I don't even know how long Ghostwire is going to take, but like games that take, dozens of hours when you're talking about a Horizon or a fucking 100 for Elden Ring stuff. Like, it's the whole same thing of like why I end up when I inevitably, like for Valhalla and even for Odyssey, right? Like those Assassin's Creed games I love and I play, and I eventually have to stop long before I roll credits because I can't give you more time. I need to move on to something else. Far Cry 6 was the same way, right? I didn't beat and platinum Far Cry 6 until I didn't beat or platinum Far Cry 6 until I did paternity leave, where I wasn't trying to get to the next thing. Shit, did I beat? I don't think I beat the story of Far Cry 6 for review, did I? No, I didn't.
But you know what? That you even having to think about that is exactly what it's like in this you have your own special circumstances in the normal world of us 9-to-5ers that like have families and other shit. It's like it's exponentially worse. But
for sure.
At the same time, like when you do find that one indie game that it gets its hooks in you, Loop Hero, cough, Loop Hero, like holy crap. And you're just going to champion the shit out of that game. And it's going to be, Loop Hero was on my short list for game of the year last year. It was up there. It was ready to go. But like I wouldn't have found that if I didn't just say, okay, I'm carving out the 20 minutes for this game real quick. Because I kind of it's my duty, it's my job, and then all of a sudden you fall in love with it. But you have to give those games a chance
for sure.
And that's what Dual Screens Podcast is all about.
Hell
Give it a chance. Listen to it. We do have a bunch of mailbag questions because you ignited a fire in our Discord. So I want to get to a couple of questions here.
Sure.
This one was actually directed to us, but I want to direct it to you. Since we have the awesome moments, this is from Mike. Since we have this awesome moment to broadcast the good word of indie games to the world, what indie games are you looking most forward to in the coming months? So this could be tough because, you don't have the list in front of you.
Yeah, so I'm immediately going to Google something and throw it open, right?
Please do. Yeah, because I lose track of when shit's actually coming out.
That's my biggest problem, man. Like, I would toss Stray out. Stray, I toss that right away, right? Like, I want Stray. You got to know what's going on.
I'm very excited for Stray.
For sure. I think it looks so interesting every time we've glanced at it. I want to know what it is actually going to be. Imminently, of course, Tunic, a game that I feel like I covered when I was still at IGN. So 8 years ago or whatever.
Holy shit, that's right.
Yeah, right? Like, that's outrageous that it's gone on that long. Yeah. So those are, imminently are close on that. I'm trying to think of longer term stuff. And that's the other thing with indies where this, when's it coming out? When it's done. We'll figure it out, right? Okay, now I'm on a Game Informer article. Bear and Breakfast. You remember when this one got announced and showed?
They were on our show.
That one looks
guest of the show.
awesome. If you don't
Yeah,
remember,
they were on
ladies and
our
gentlemen,
show.
if you prefer your woodland building experiences to be to lean more cozy than grotesque, then check out Bear and Breakfast. You'll play as the bear protagonist Hank, who, on discovering a rundown inn in the woods, becomes inspired to build up his very own bed and breakfast. It's your job to turn the dilapidated establishment into the finest house of hospitality you can with your own 2 paws.
And let me tell you, if you want to hear a really interesting story of how that game was created and how it's been going, listen to our show with them on there, because it was phenomenal. Like it just phenomenal stuff. We have another question. This is one's from the doctor. Hey, Greg.
Jack.
Being someone on the side of games coverage and commentary, what are some things you've seen indie game devs do to grab your attention? What marketing tips do you have that might help some small devs get noticed more?
The big thing I always do with small devs is be personable. And I mean, not be nice to people, of course, be nice to people, but know who you're pitching to and go pitch people. Like, I think that was the thing about, I look at something like Shovel Knight. The reason Shovel Knight was able to get that initial oomph, I mean, on top of it being a great game and looking awesome, yeah, but I mean, like, grab people's attention, is that Shovel Knight was like, who they listened, they consumed video game content. They consumed IGN, GameSpot podcasts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so they were able to go, who likes these kind of old school games? And they went after those people and showed up in their inboxes. That goes so far. I can't tell you the amount of people who've hit me up and been like, hey, I know that you like these kind of games. You'd like our game because of X, Y, and Z. It's the one where, you know, like every morning when I wake up and start prepping for Kind of Funny Games Daily, even if I'm not on it, like I go through my inbox to look for new dates and new things to put on there, and I wake up to 90 new emails every morning, and so many of them are the just blah, Game X is launching with a pun about it's the spaceship game is going to rocket into stores on blah, and it's like that's the kind of shit you go through and you just copy paste into new dates, and go. And so then when you start running into this is an early access, this is the thing, this has a demo, like, okay, cool, but do I have time to read through every one of those emails and look at the GIF and look at the video? No, but I've done plenty of them where I get rid of them and a PR person or a developer that has known me before or just knows of me from the internet follows back up and is like, hey, we're putting this out and we're Kind of Funny best friends. And we really think this would work for Andy because he likes, he loves dodging and rolling. So this is a kind of game for him. Like
He does.
And I know that is like such a... It sounds like an insane amount of legwork because if you don't want to listen to video game podcasts, if you don't want to do that, to check it at the door is so tough. So then I think it just comes down to working with people who do that or know people that are in the industry that way. Because the personal touch goes so far, whether you are a developer or whether you are PR, to getting you on it. One of my good friends the other day, this actually goes the other way, where he gave me the soft pitch at DICE on a game. And I was like, yeah, it sounds fine, whatever. And then I went on a different podcast and that person turned out to be super into it and they sold me on it. And I texted that friend. I was like, you know what? Give me everything about this game. And he's like, I have to work on my pitch. If this guy in 5 seconds was able to sell you on this, and I couldn't, but it's like, again, when somebody speaks directly to you of you liked X, so you will like Y, or this is why you'd be interested in it. That goes so far.
Absolutely. We have one from Mr. Nuff here. Dear Greggles, salutations and beyond.
Beyond!
As an industry vet and respected personality, debatable.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people looking to break into journalistic side of the industry? Now, you've answered this before.
Sure.
On like 1,000 things. So, Mr. Nuff, I'm disappointed in you. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But the world has changed since COVID. So what kind of advice I want to give a modifier. What kind of advice would you give people trying to get into it now in this remote work environment post-COVID?
I mean, for now, it's what I love about the advice is that it's always been the same. It just evolves over time, right? So if you would have talked to me in 2007 when I got hired at IGN to review PSP games or whatever, I would have said the same thing of like, oh, you want to do this? You should start doing it. And that stems from, of course, my story of getting hired at IGN, where I've known I wanted to write about video games and talk about video games, but we'll say write because that's all I knew at the time, since the 4th grade. And so every choice I made was to get a journalism degree and go work at EGM. Like that was it. I was going to graduate University of Missouri. I was going to move back to the burbs of Chicago where I grew up and where EGM was at the time. And I was going to do that. And I graduated college and nobody would touch me, man. And the story always goes that, I got hired at IGN on my 13th attempt on my post-college email, meaning that in a year and a half, I applied for 13 jobs at IGN. The first 12, I didn't even get a rejection letter. I didn't even know that I didn't get the job. Nothing came back. And it's because, of course, IGN gets hundreds of job things every time.
Sure.
The 13th one, I submitted it. a month went by, but I submitted it. And then when they finally looked into it, I got contacted, interviewed, and hired within 24 hours. So literally overnight, all my dreams came true.
And then you almost got murdered.
Yeah, well, I almost died in a blizzard. Different story. But when that was all done and I got out, Earl wasn't going to murder me, all right?
I don't know. The jury's still out on that. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Earl in Nebraska. When I got to IGN and I had signed all my paperwork, my first day was done. Like, Roper was like, how'd it go? I was like, it's great. And I turned to him and I was like, but what happened? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what was different this time? And I'm like, I applied 13 times. The other 12 times you could have had me at any point, but you didn't hit me up. Why? And he's like, well, this time you proved you could do it, because in that year and a half, I had been writing on a daily video game blog. I had been doing a weekly column, and actually this is the final 6 months of it, to be honest. But I had actually been doing it and showing I could do this, and it wasn't a clip here, a clip there, and then just the belief I could do it. And it's the same thing I remember when EGM was hiring for the review crew when I was in high school or whatever, and I was like, they were like, submit things, maybe you could be it. And I wrote my first 2 video game reviews ever and sent them in, and I'm sure they were garbage, and no wonder they didn't touch me. Like, so for writing, the advice always was, do it. In 4th grade, I knew I wanted to write about video games. Well, I should have been writing about video games for every game I played. Every game I play, I should have been reviewing, so I'd be getting better and learning how to actually do a review. I didn't. And so that advice over the years has escalated to, oh, you want to do what we do? I get that all the time. I want to start a podcast, or I want to do that. I'm like, cool. Or what's your podcast? Oh, well, I don't have it yet. We're waiting on getting the mic, or I want to make some more money to get the lights. And I'm like, throw that shit out. Like, you just took a photo with me on your iPhone. Your iPhone can record a podcast. Like, the first, if we're going off of Greg Miller's experience, right? Your first 100 podcasts will be garbage, or at least you learning the kinks of it all, right? Like, I look back, and I would never listen to them.
We made it.
But I look back at those early IGN podcasts when I'd be on IGN as AFK, or I'd be on GameScoop, and I was so in my head, because it was like, don't breathe into the mic. Am I breathing too much? How do I talk? When do I interject? But they said this, and I think that's this developer, but I don't want to say anything. And like, that's natural. That's going to happen. That's going to go. Let alone even when you get together, when we hired Blessing and we brought back PS I Love You, like, I felt like him and I took, weeks to get an actual cadence going, because that's a dance, man. 2 hours with one other person. Like, you have to figure out the cadence and who each other are. And like, again, we had to deal with COVID on top of that. And so the advice in 2022 is you should be doing it, and it's easier than ever. Like, I'm talking about, you have an iPhone. That's how easy it is. Sit around a table with your friends. We all understand Zoom now. We all understand Discord. We all understand Teams, whatever Google Chat, whatever the hell you're using to talk and see people, you could be recording a podcast that way. And hundreds, if not millions of people are doing it. So there's tutorials on how to do everything out there. And then you get into how easy Elgato's made it to have studio lights. I'm pointing to that, like the low profile arm. This is not a sponsored thing. It's just the fact that they make awesome shit that makes it easy to do these shows. Like, that can all come later. The nice camera, the nice lighting, all that can come way later, because in the beginning, people aren't showing up for that. They're going to show up to see what you're talking about, and you have to have the content there to back it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, look at TikTok. Like, you could even look at TikTok to like a 60-second, 90-second quick, like the nanobiologist, friend of the show, friend of kind of funny best friend, who does his nano reviews. And they're great. They're like these short little concise little reviews, and they're fantastic. And as difficult as they are to get to be, noticed or polished or whatever, you can start somewhere.
Build that library. You never know what's going to be the one to break out, right? Like, we're learning so much right now with our TikTok experiment that Roger and his team started, this year, and really going hard on it. It's us doing reviews. And like, for me coming in with having done so many IGN video reviews, it was such an eye-opening experience that like, oh man, I only have 40 seconds to do this. Like, there's no time for me to give you the preamble of where the game came from and what the developers did before, right? Nobody gives a shit. Is it good or bad, and why? And it's not even like in the old time, show, don't tell. Now it's just like, just tell them, and then we'll show, don't tell, and when we talk about it in Gamescast, just get it through the door right now. It's a fun new thing to learn. Yeah.
So we're short on time. So
I said you can go. Let's go to 12:08, and then I'll go to 1:08 with the next person.
No.
Oh, you have a life. You have a life to do.
No,
you got something more important. I see how it is.
No. This is probably the most
Andy,
important
how do you put
segment
up with
of
this
the
guy
show.
every Friday? I don't know.
It's a challenge every single Friday. It's every single day of my life.
You're like, you're getting off light just on a Friday? No, sir.
I get the anxiety, the doubt. I get all of it. It all to this point. I'm like, listen, it's gonna be fine. They liked us.
He's my rock. Well, actually, there's a parallel here to Dual Screens and young Greg Miller, because 2 years ago, I wrote to Greg Miller to talk about Dual Screens when we really sort of. You were like, yeah, nah, not right now. I'm busy.
Good.
And I was like, cool, but it makes sense now because we did it for those 2 years where we really hit our stride. We rebranded. We really hit the nail. And now I guess we kind of floated to the top. As the cream floats to the top. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Elizabeth, I'm coming.
This is also what I have to deal with on a daily basis.
I got the hat and the sunglasses somewhere.
I saw the belt.
And you see
I've been
my
eyeing
belt
the belt. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's a parallel. But I want to get into rapid fire. Okay, this is how we end every show with every guest, every indie dev, and you don't really even have to clear your mind because honestly, some of these questions are going to be completely ridiculous. But this is how we get to know you.
Love it. Thank you. Nobody knows who I am. It's great.
Okay, not a single one of our people that's listening to this. We basically are doing this as a favor to you.
I appreciate that. Remember, everybody come to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, like, subscribe, share.
Exactly. So we're going to start off with some simple questions, and then we're going to ramp up the difficulty. Are you ready, Andy?
I'm so ready for this, Steven.
This is going to be good.
This is always the best part of the show.
We're going to start off easy. Is cereal a soup?
No.
Interesting.
How many
Interesting. As I'm taking the Rorschach test over here. Oh, well, click the pen. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go.
How many pigeons could you carry at one time?
13.
When you're getting dressed in the morning, is it sock, shoe, shoe, or sock, shoe, shoe?
Sock, shoe, shoe.
Interesting.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Come on. It's Greg Miller. That's why I didn't lead off with that question, Andy. Come on.
It's one of those things where I would never order it. Well, not never. Andy Cortez has his pepperoni diplomacy act where there needs to be more pepperoni pizzas than any other pizza and I agree with that. I do.
And I agree with that as well.
But I do appreciate when it is a smorgasbord of pizzas and there is the Hawaiian pizza. That's when I'm like, you know what? Yes, I will do a slice of this. I can't remember last time I ever ordered a Hawaiian pizza, but I definitely like to nosh on it when I see it.
Put it this way, it's a strategy, I think, because if you are ordering pizzas and you're passing around the phone, you're like, here, order a pizza, whatever for the group, and you order a Hawaiian, because everybody's going to order stuff that everybody likes, right? You order the Hawaiian, you're guaranteed at least 2 Hawaiian slices. Sure. You're guaranteed, because nobody, it's so rare, and I love it, and it's delicious. What would you rather have, the power of flight or invisibility?
Flight.
Mm-hmm.
If video games were illegal, what would their street name be?
I would say you got the goods with the Z. You know what I mean? Yeah, I need some goods
with the Z.
Because I was going to go games with the Z. That's the cops would know immediately. Yeah. But you say goods with the Z, it could be anything.
But do you have to say goods with a Z, or do you have to pronounce it?
No, because if you're on the street and we come up and we do the cool back alley bad guy handshake, people are going to be like, and I say you got the goods, you're going to know what I'm talking about.
No, the cop goes goods with the Z that you know.
No, not that. Narc.
Which one? You got the one with the backwards Z or what?
Asking too many questions, officer. I don't buy it.
I'm counting on it.
Good reference.
Yeah. Would you rather explore the deepest parts of our ocean or the deepest corners of space safely? You could do it safely. There's no harm to your life. You can get back to Earth, no problem.
Space. Ocean, whatever. I'm going to find another fish down there. You know what I mean? Whatever.
Would you rather have one actual get out of jail free card or a key that unlocks any door?
A key that unlocks any door.
The master of unlocking. I got it.
Yeah.
The master of unlocking. What's your superhero name?
Gruesome Greggy.
Sounds like a villain, but okay.
That's the grappler. Gruesome Greggy operates in that gray area. He's like a Punisher. You know what I mean? Like, what's he going to do? I don't know. He's out there for the good thing.
If you could pick any song to play when you entered a room, what song would that be?
Ghostbusters.
Oh my god, I love it.
Mm,
So good.
God, fuck, Greg's back.
Okay. Piggybacking off of that, does busted make you feel good
Oh yeah, all the time. In any form.
Always.
in any form? It's true. That's true. That's true.
Oh my god. Would you rather eat a dick flavored cake or a cake flavored dick?
Interesting. So now for the cake flavored dick, when I eat
Yes.
it, am I like, is it cannibalism or am I just like sucking on a dick?
Yeah.
Everyone got you, Jen? Your headphones aren't on for that one. All right.
Yeah,
It's
the
not
power is yours,
cannibalism.
Greg.
It's not.
It's not cannibalism.
We'll let that slide in this instance.
I guess even after asking, I'd probably go with the cake, the dick flavored cake.
Got it.
Yeah, because remember when it went around TikTok for a while where people were like, avocado tastes like clean dick or something. You see this TikTok trend a while back?
No.
Go look it up.
I can't say
go
that.
To go to the
What is
TikTok
going on in your
archives.
algorithm, Greg?
My algorithm's got all sorts of good stuff on it. That's all I'm saying.
This is a very specific question. When Undertaker was bursting through that wall,
Love it.
what was the wall made out of? In
It
your
was
brain?
brick.
Was
It was
brick?
brick. Oh, yeah.
Of course it was.
Because
Of
it's how
course.
the kind of funny, Jesus, the IGN, that version of the IGN
I remember
podcast
that
room was set up
room,
as it had that brick wall because it was when we just
Yep.
moved into 2nd Street and we were podcasting down on 2 actually. And yeah, they had the brick wall there at the back. That's
Fucking Kool-Aid man. Rest in peace. Okay.
Chokes
Go ahead,
Sam and
Andrew.
Clements through a table.
Would you rather be a reverse centaur or a reverse merman?
Okay, so yeah. So I gotcha.
Yeah.
I'd rather be reverse centaur.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I don't have to have the gill thing to worry about. Like, hey, do I need to be in the water a lot to be? And I don't want to be in the water that much as a mer
That's
person.
true.
And
So
that'd be
you-
kind of
you-
dope as hell.
yeah.
It'd be like this, fucking bull walking around. But I assume I can talk still.
Love that look for you, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm gonna pick somebody. Here we go. This is what I'm gonna do. Your phone rings. It's the middle of the night, Greg.
Yeah.
Middle of the fucking night. It is 2:30, maybe 3:30. Maybe you just put your baby boy back in after a nice nighttime feeding, and you're like, "Fuck, I am tired. I'm going to bed." And boom, phone rings.
Yeah.
Okay. It is the police department. It is the Detective Sausage Cakes,
Oh my God.
and
Sausage.
Detective Sausage Cakes, and Kevin Coelho has been arrested.
Sure.
What is his crime?
Breaking and entering.
Oh, okay. Did he? What? Can I ask what he broke and entered into?
Yeah.
Where?
Taqueria.
Yeah.
Taqueria.
Taqueria. Yeah. That's so.
What?
It's
I
right
just
there.
wanted to make a burrito. I mean, you can hear him on the back as detective. Sorry, Sausage Takes talks to me.
And okay, we need the Photoshop now of Milk Mommy
In jail, the bars in front of his head.
Just the sign stand up. All right, Andy, let's get a couple more and then we'll get out of here.
What is something you have done that should have killed you?
Oh, backyard wrestling.
Oh yes. Oh, that was the other thing. That was the other thing that what we had in common. I was like,
Lord.
he also did this nonsense. This is
Yeah.
great. Who didn't? Honestly, don't try this at home. Yeah, my
get
ass.
out of here. They still put it. They put it in front of the new game too. Don't try this at home, school, anywhere. I'm like, all right, calm down.
Where else am I gonna play video games? 2K in the streets?
Get out of here. I need the goods. With a Z.
With a Z specifically. What was the dumbest way you've injured yourself?
It was in college where our upstairs roommate was moving out. He'd put all the stuff he didn't want down there. I went down and got his suitcase he was throwing away, which was canvas. I put the lamp he didn't want in the suitcase. I brought it back upstairs. It wasn't even funny. We took it back outside and we were drunk. And so I jumped on top of the suitcase and it was a big glass lamp that I thought was going to pop and shatter inside the suitcase. Instead, what had happened is it didn't, and it rolled. So I jumped on it, and then it rolled out from underneath me, and I fell back into the grass and rolled around because I got the wind knocked out of me. But then what had happened is we had forgotten that earlier in the night we had taken all the belongings, put them on our friend's car who would come over to party, and we put the carpet there, the coffee table there, and then some beer bottles and garbage on it or whatever. And when he came out, he got mad, and he threw all that stuff down, and the beer bottle shattered and went into the grass. So I rolled around and rolled back, and I thought I had hyperextended my right knee, and I was like, oh, God, and I looked over at my left knee, and it was just gushing blood because I had rolled over on a broken in half beer bottle, like if you're in a bar fight.
Drunk, probably.
And I was super drunk, and it cut into my knee, and I always said it looked like a perfect baby bite, like it was like a baby upper and bottom teeth, but bit me. And I walked into the house drunk. We were all having a party, so everybody was drunk. And the only person sober there was my buddy Kyle's girlfriend. She looked at me and screamed, "Miller, oh my God." And I was like, "Is it that bad?" She's like, "Yes, you have to go to the hospital right now." And my buddy Kyle, who was playing Mario Kart on GameCube, didn't even look over. He just goes, "Miller, soldiers fight in wars." And I went, "You're right, Kyle, they do." And I went to my room and I got a t-shirt and I tied a tourniquet around the wound and I walked around our East Campus neighborhood drinking the rest of the night. And I woke up in the morning because we were going to do a parade through the streets of Mizzou as the Antlers. And I woke up and I threw up in the bed and it was just caked in blood. It was just blood everywhere. It was a crime scene, and I took it off and I couldn't like extend the leg, and I was like, I'm in trouble here. And so we went to the hospital, but rather, since I'm a kid at all of 19, probably 19 at this, 19, maybe 20, but we'll say 19. We got outside the hospital and I didn't want to go in because I didn't want to worry about insurance or payments or that. So we started trying, it's a university hospital. So there's a bunch of kids there who are like med students or whatever. They're walking in and out all the time. We kept trying to stop them to ask them to look at my leg, just random ass people in scrubs. Like, and they were like, "No, we will not do this." And finally I went to the student center hours later. And I got there and I filled the forms and I waited out in the room for like, the 15 minutes or whatever. Then they brought me in to like question me what was really going on. She's like, "Okay, cool. Can I see it?" And I opened it up and she went, oh God. "Oh, okay. You're going in next. You're going in next." And I got in there and the doctor's like, "You should have been here last night. There's nothing we can do for it. I'll give you a saline wash right now and you'll bandage it up and you're going to have a scar the rest of your life. But you should have gotten stitches last night." And that's how I still, to this day, have a scar on my knee that kind of looks like a baby bite. It went down over time.
Wow.
But it's just a flesh wound.
It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the final question of the show. It is the most important question you're going to ever be asked in your entire life.
You're going to ask him this question?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, boy.
Of course I am.
I want the real show.
Every single guest has answered this question, or at least attempted to. Some failed. Most succeeded. But it's really the most difficult question you're ever going to be asked, and you're going to probably have to think about it for at least a couple of milliseconds.
Okay.
But again, this is a simple question.
Okay.
It's the most difficult question, but it's simple in the sense that it's a binary answer. It is this or that. It is yes or no. It is A or B, as it were. Literally, a dog can answer it. Maybe not a baby. Some babies. Maybe yours.
Okay. And
that question is, Andy or Steve?
Ha! Well, I think Steve's done more of the legwork here on the show. Like, he's been talking and hosting. You know what I mean? Like, Andy's a great second banana. Don't get me wrong. But like,
Andy knew his role here.
Steve's been driving the show. He's got a championship belt back there. He's got a bunch of Batman Funko Pops. He's got the shirtless Spider-Man. I look at Andy. What's he got? Some doors, some closet doors. It looks like maybe.
I was gonna say
there's Sega Saturn games on the bookshelf. I can't really make it out.
If you didn't pick Steven, instant suicide watch. So I'm glad.
I would have been.
Really he can't come. He's not going to be able to come back from this one.
I would have. Yeah, my therapist would have needed a phone.
Price
call
412 does point out that with those doors back there, you might have some goods in there. So maybe I made the wrong choice.
Oh, he's got goods with a Z for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at Batchild27. Andy is at PantsGuy. We are at Duel_Screens on Twitter. We're at Duel Screens over on the TikTok, which we made one video exactly so far. Listen, this is hard.
We nailed it. We nailed it on the first one. We don't need any more.
We retired. We hold up the award and that's it. Facebook.com/groups/DS podcast. And again, if you want to support us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/NDS podcast. And again, you can get into our Discord and all that fun stuff with that for as little as $1. You can follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/dual-screen-streams, and that's Duel, D-U-E-L, in case you were wondering. It is duel like fighting, not duel like multiple. It's called a pun. It's like a, you know what I mean?
Puns work real well in the audio podcast realm. That's right.
They sure do. They sure do. And again, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/dual-screens-TV. Where could everybody find you, Greg, as if they don't already know?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, where we talk about the nerdy news you need to know about each and every day in the video game industry, whether it's Kind of Funny Games Daily, PS I Love You, XOXO, the Xcast, or the Gamescast. There's something for you to watch.
Indeed. And, notification bell and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, of course. Like, subscribe, share.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, Miss Envy, who's going to get your very special wink right now. And as always, please be excellent to each other.